also acquired a diploma in law through the Advocates Training Program at the Kenya School of Law. And I have a Master of Laws in Sustainable International Development from the University of Washington in Seattle. I have had occasion to serve in various capacities at the private sector through development work. I have worked with the USAID. I have worked with the Kituo cha Sheria in advancing public interest litigation. I have also had occasion to serve as a member of the executive in the capacity of Cabinet Secretary in charge of environment, climate change, and forestry. Mr. Speaker, in terms of suitability for the position that I have been nominated to, the array of service that I have had occasion to be in, both in the public sector, the private sector, and in the civil service as a Cabinet Secretary, really posture me for this position as Cabinet nominee for Defense. Mr. Speaker, and my legal background and training, from my conception of the role ahead of me, it's largely a policy role in terms of analysis of policy, design of policy, and oversight of implementation of policy. And I believe that my role and experience in the three fields posture me well for the assignment ahead. The assignment ahead, should I be confirmed by this committee, again is largely a heavily constitutional office. You will find that the defense sector or the defense space and indeed national security really has the Constitution and Parliament as the bedrock of operations of the role ahead of me. So in appreciating and thanking His Excellency the President, William Ruto, for nominating me for this position, I believe that I have the requisite experience and training for the job. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll ask the Deputy Speaker to have the first shot at questioning you.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Speaker. I can also make a confession that the nominee was my student at University of Nairobi. But that in no way will affect my judgment. Honorable Soipan, like you said, that the defense docket is highly regulated by law and rules and standing orders and military procedures. We have the Constitution and the Kenya Defense Forces Act, which establishes the position of Cabinet Secretary for Defense, who is then the principal advisor of the President on defense policy, while we have the Chief of Defense Forces, who advises the military on operational and administrative matters. So despite these two distinct roles, there's a potential that there can be an overlap. How do you intend to manage that relationship? Because that is probably the most difficult thing in the position. Thank you.
Soipan, and we expect concise and precise answers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In terms of my role as CS for Defense, upon confirmation by this committee, I understand my role as being that of principal advisor to the President on matters of policy, also a heavy advisory role to Parliament on matters policy formulation, assessment of the capabilities of the Kenya Defense Forces, and any attendant action to ensure maximization of our capability. Mr. Speaker, I am aware of the distinction between I have no military background, and the Ministry of Defense has both a uniformed unit and a civilian unit. My role upon confirmation again will be chair of the Defense Council, the composition of which is consists of the Chief of the Defense Forces, the CDF, and the service commanders. I am a team player by design and by practice. I am also very consultative in my leadership philosophy, and this is a skill set that I will have to employ heavily in terms of the need to understand the operational and administrative role of the uniformed side of the ministry for complementarity, but also to give me a competitive edge in terms of bringing my expertise from the civilian aspect, borrowing and learning from the uniformed aspect, so that my advisory role on policy is going to be rich and sufficient to advise the Commander-in-Chief as well as my interaction with Parliament. So I am confident that I will bring a team spirit to the ministry, and particularly at the level of the Defense Council, which is where I will be interacting with the service commanders. Thank you.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. CS nominee, being one among the lucky 10 or so who were reappointed after the dismissal, what would you tell us would be at least one of your key achievements as Minister for Environment and Climate Change before the dismissal? And also Kenya having hosted the African Climate Change Summit last year and being one of the principal proponents of carbon markets trading. And that responsibility was in your office as Cabinet Secretary to enter into either multilateral or bilateral trading agreements for carbon credits. What would you say were your major achievements in that space in terms of trading carbon credits to be able to generate resources for our country?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My role as Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Forestry was one of them, beside being the overall leadership on policy matters in the ministry. The environment and climate change sector is one that is cross-cutting across many sectors, but also at the various two levels of government, both national and county governments. I pride myself in successfully coordinating the various players in the environment and climate change sector, to the extent that Honorable Majority Leader, the success of the Africa Climate Summit, for example, was really a global event that brought the world to Nairobi and required a lot of heavy coordination. My other key priority as a CS Ministry of Environment was our ecosystem restoration program, the 15 billion tree growing program, which again, I believe I attained a significant amount of success in rallying the country to appreciate, right from individual Kenyan levels to ministries, departments, and agencies, and the various levels of players, to come together and rally around ecosystem restoration as a critical component of our climate action. The Africa Climate Summit was a success by all design, in that Kenya did a heavy lifting of a job in spotlighting the potential for Africa to become a very critical solution provider for the climate action, the globe over, and dispelling the prevailing portraying of Africa as a victim, you know, the underdog in terms of the area of climate action, and posturing Africa, Kenya, as part of a critical solution provider. In the issue of carbon markets, Honorable Speaker, again, it's a mark of success for me. Kenya is touted as the top leader in carbon trading in the region of Africa. But in terms of the transparency of it, how much it impacts the lives of everyday Kenyans, and how much of that profiling of Kenya as top in the carbon markets contributes to the GDP of the country was really not there. And what I did immediately I came into the ministry was focus on formulating a legal framework through amendment of the Climate Change Act to bring transparency, accountability, and bring out the issue of benefit sharing for communities around the carbon markets. And it is instructive to note that carbon trading is a very nascent space over the globe now as a form of innovative climate financing. And just immediately before I left the ministry, we had already set up structures ready for full implementation of the new legal framework around carbon trading. And I believe it's going to be of benefit to Kenyans. It's going to be of benefit to investors in the form of project proponents, and most importantly, to communities. Thank you.
Minority Leader, you skip. Yes, Nelson.
As the chairman of Defense, Intelligence and Foreign Relations, I'll be directly oversighting you, Madam Soipan. In my two-term stint,
if confirmed.
If confirmed, I was going there. You guys are interrupting my apologies. If confirmed, my two stints in Parliament has allowed me to see 4 generals, both as just a member of Defense Committee and now as a chairman, and 3 cabinet secretaries. And the biggest issue, Madam Soipan, Honorable Soipan, has been the lack of appreciation from the civilian side of the military units and formation. They feel that the civilian side is overreaching and sometimes overbearing. They want to, you know, by the time someone becomes a general, it takes about 35 years of hard work and merit. Every step in the military is merited. And sometimes because of our, you know, short stints in the portfolios that we get, they have a feeling that sometimes the cabinet secretaries or the civilian side are overreaching. What do you think you will do differently, Honorable Soipan?
Hold will take Naisula.
Thank you, Chairman. Honorable Soipan, in your previous docket at the Ministry of Environment, you are at the forefront and very instrumental in the national tree growing campaigns. Kenyans and many of us were concerned about the amount invested in the various government officials, such as cabinet secretaries who traversed the country in choppers to participate in tree planting drive. While these exercises could have been conducted by the governors and the counties and our members of parliament and the people at the community level. Now that Kenyans are very keen on austerity measures, what will you make sure, what will you do? And you first tell us what was the justification, or what did you have in mind as a cabinet secretary to see all those resources spent on choppers to go and plant trees? The second question is the issue of deployment of KDF in our homeland. We saw recently how KDF was deployed in inland or homeland without it being passed in Parliament. And we did it the next day hurriedly, even without members of Parliament deliberating on that matter. I would like to get your view on this. And also deployment of KDF in parts of North Rift parts of our country. And the true feeling on the ground is that they do not respond fast when they are needed. They say they have to wait for orders. And the questions the civilians and the communities are asking, then why are you there in the first place if you cannot be the first respondents when something happens, when the bandits attack, and you have to wait for orders from somewhere else? And Chairman, the last question is that there are projects which were done by KDF in the last administration. Some are complete, but payment has not been done. Will the payment, do you think there should be continuity in government projects while others are incomplete, but 2 years down the line they have not been embarked on? Do you think continuity should be there, because there should be value for money?
You can respond to those two.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. The question by the Honorable Nelson Koech on the probability of my overreaching my mandate from the civilian side and infringing on the uniformed side of the ministry, I can give assurance to all the players in the Ministry of Defense that upon my confirmation as CS Defense, that as I had said earlier, I'm very heavy on team playing. I'm also a fast learner, Honorable Koech, and I'll have a lot of learning to do in terms of the military operations, the administration. And in order for me to effectively exercise my overall oversight, the overall policy direction and advisory, I will need to critically understand those operations without infringing or interfering with those very distinct roles of the uniformed units of the ministry. That I can give assurance. I'm also very, very consultative in my leadership style. Honorable Naisola, the issue of tree growing and choppers by cabinet secretaries. My main role as CS for Environment in the tree growing activity was really coordinatory. And you will appreciate, Honorable Naisola, that the nature of the ecosystem restoration program is that it has to have everybody on board, from individual Kenyans, private sector, and all government agencies. So it cannot be the preserve of even the Ministry of Environment, and that is why we were very heavy on the whole of government and whole of society approach to the tree growing program. In the coordinatory role of when I was CS Environment, we did not make any provision for transport or logistics arrangements for cabinet secretaries when they were exercising their, when they were doing their ministerial activities around tree growing. So any cabinet secretary who traveled by chopper, by road, really it was outside of my mandate and scope. And therefore, I cannot speak to that. The only thing I can say is that during the second national tree growing program, and having noted a number of concerns raised by Kenyans around the heavy presence of helicopters and heavy spending around tree growing, again, we addressed that at cabinet level and making sure that the exercise was, again, very grassroots centered. The coordination by the Kenya Forest Service and other entities at the community or the grassroots level, or at the forestation levels. And therefore, in terms of resources, I had no mandate to resource anybody to go out and plant trees. Actually, my role was only coordinatory. In terms of the second question, Honorable Lesuda, on deployment of KDF, Mr. Speaker, it is very important for Kenyans to understand the core mandate of the KDF, and one of which is the defense and protection of the territorial integrity of the country, as well as the country's sovereignty. The other two key functions of KDF revolve around internal deployment, and it comes in two forms. This is a constitutional mandate of KDF on one facet, and this is should be Article 241(3)(b) of the Constitution, where KDF can come in to assist and cooperate with other agencies in instances of emergency and disaster. An example of which is the deployment of KDF to assist during the flooding situation, where we lost a lot of lives in Mai Mahiu. In that instance, deployment happens, and then a report is made to Parliament. And it is also important to note that under that particular deployment of assisting and cooperating with other agencies, the KDF is not the front line. The front line is these other agencies, and it is the case with the northern Kenya deployment. So these other agencies are the front line, and KDF comes in to assist and cooperate. The other very important facet of deployment is Article 241(3)(c). And Mr. Speaker, this is the aspect of deployment which cannot happen without the authority of Parliament. And this is the deployment of the KDF forces to keep peace in instances of instability in the country. And that cannot happen without the express approval of Parliament. And in that instance, the KDF take the front line in terms of operations. Allow me, Mr. Speaker, to speak to the deployment that happened during the recent unrest. The deployment happened around the assistance and cooperation with other agencies. So it is not the 241(3)(c), where KDF takes the front line. And what happened is that the CS then did the deployment via gazette notice for KDF to assist the National Police Service. And the following day came before Parliament to seek authority for 241(3)(c). But the 241(3)(c) was never effected. The only effect was done on 241(3)(b) on assistance. And the reason why, in my thinking, that the deployment under 241(3)(c) never happened is because upon the court case, which I believe is still live, and I will not speak to the merits or demerits of the case, is that the court then mandated the government to expand on the scope, the nature, and the duration of the deployment, and that was done through a subsequent gazette notice, which then gave a broader definition of the deployment across the country, and until the unrest situation is addressed. Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Speaker, there's one more question, but allow me also to say that all the operations of KDF, and indeed under the principles of national security is subject to the Constitution. National security is subject to the authority of Parliament. And I will, upon confirmation, be very keen to focus on the need to strictly adhere to the constitutional provisions with regard to deployment. Honorable Lesuda, with regard to the slow nature of movement by KDF, of course, I have not had occasion to listen and hear out that part of the complaint, but I would imagine it is because they are not the front line. The front line is the National Police Service. In terms of projects by KDF that are incomplete, the value for money issue, I can only say that I will defer a comprehensive response to this question. And also given that one of my mandates as CS upon confirmation is to assess and oversee the implementation of projects to ensure efficiency and proper utilization of funds, and with a close working relationship with the line committee of Parliament, these are issues that I should be able to address upon confirmation. Thank you.
Posing.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. To begin with, Honorable Speaker, and to the nominee, is an information that if you are confirmed, Honorable Soipan, if the committee sees it fit and Parliament.
Posting, hold on. Soipan, the clerk wants your documents so that they can be able to check against what you send to us as we go on with the questions. If you can provide that, thank you. Go on, Posing.
I thank you, Honorable Speaker. To the nominee, Honorable Soipan, I was saying, one is this North Rift conflict, which of course KDF were brought in accordance with the law. And of course you might remember, or in the discussion, West Pokot was the epicenter of all these issues for completely wrong reason. However, I wanted to remind you, if you are confirmed, that there are some few things which are going on. And I hope when you come in that you don't forget, so I want to give it for your list. There are projects which were to be done. And absence of war, Honorable Soipan, through Honorable Speaker, is not necessarily peace. So maybe people in North Rift are waiting for those government interventions, right? And if they don't, I don't know what they're going to say. So there are two places which the government had not or have not completed deploying KDF. One is a place called Sokoto, and another one is called Kamele. This is epicenter of conflict in North Rift. I want you to note. 3 is opening of schools in all those areas. Can you imagine, as I talk to you, Honorable Speaker, that there's a division called J2nd Division in North Rift, which has more than 6 schools where students don't go. You know, because nobody can go there because of insecurity. And one of our agreement with the leadership at that particular time that those schools were open and be done by KDF. That spans all the way from TRT, West Pokot, and something like that. So Honorable Speaker, through you, I want the Honorable nominee to know that should she be approved by Parliament to take over. The question there, therefore, is, Honorable Soipan, this recruitment of KDF has been bringing a lot of problems in the public at that local level in terms of corruption. And it's almost becoming an official thing where a parent with a child going for recruitment comes to some of us as leaders and asks for money. Can you imagine? Money to be used to pay people in KDF. And its average is between 600 and 1 million. Imagine. You know, it's terrible. It's terrible. And you know, locally, and particularly for us pastoralists, being employed in the army is almost like going to heaven. You know, it is the best job, actually, from where I come from. It's actually the best job. So people spend a lot of money. So what will you do now? That's a question. You don't need to respond to the earlier one. The question will be, what will you do in this department that is said people buying jobs, people selling, and it is true, Honorable Soipan, people sell land to pay 600,000 to 1 million. What will you do, Madam Soipan, that there is nobody to pay to be recruited as a KDF? Thank you, Speaker.
Vicaria, you'll pass. Emase, you'll pass.
Chairman, I just want to add on to what Honorable Kosing has said. And besides parting with money, even those recruits who are successful on reporting to training camps, a number of them are dismissed on flimsy reasons. It happened last year, and our constituents came to us. Our efforts to reach the CS were in vain. So we really want to know, because Kenyans are suffering. Again, I want to reiterate that recruitment into KDF has become a preserve of the rich people. The poor people will never get their children working in KDF. So if we approve you, are you going to make a difference? What is it you're going to do differently? So that opportunities are open and available to all Kenyans, irrespective of who you are and where you come from, on whether you have land to sell or not. That is a very serious issue. Honorable nominee, we need your response to that.
Daud.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Soipan, you did a wonderful job while you were in environment, and I believe if we approve you, you will do better in defense. I just want to touch on 2-3 things which the defense forces were handling: Nairobi Metropolitan, the KMC, Kenya Meat Commission, and others, and they've got a very good engineering department. Would you probably think, if you are appointed, to have the company, the Kenya Defense Forces, like a company where they would come and assist in making schools and making bridges and all that at a fraction of a cost what the government would be paying private contractors? Would you think that would work if you were appointed?
You can answer those, Soipan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have noted the concerns raised by the Honorable Kosing on the epicenters of conflict in West Pokot County. I promise Honorable Kosing, should I be successful in becoming the CS, I will focus on these concerns because of the critical nature of opening up the northern region. I believe opening it up for development and all the infrastructure necessary for the livelihood support for the people of West Pokot will go a long way. On the issue of KDF recruitment, Mr. Speaker, from my reading of the core principles of national security, the drafters of our constitution found it fit that the issue of integrity around recruitment of Kenyans to the Kenya Defense Forces would be a very core component of the national principles of national security, because the Constitution actually demands of the national security organs to ensure, to reflect the diversity of the communities of Kenya and ensure diversity in equitable proportions in the recruitment of Kenyans to the defense forces and other security organs. Mr. Speaker, when you see the enthusiasm around young Kenyans coming to front themselves to participate in the recruitment into the forces, I think it is a process we have to guard very seriously in terms of the integrity. And I want to assure members of Parliament, I want to assure Kenyans that being that this is an issue that has been so incessant, I have been a member of this House before, Mr. Speaker, and this is an issue that has kept on recurring over and again. And being that the chairman of the line committee on defense and national and foreign relations is a member of this committee, I can commit, Honorable Speaker, that I will take time to evaluate the standard operating procedures of the KDF recruitment process, and with a view to identify the gaps to make sure that we adhere to the strict requirement of the Constitution in terms of the integrity around the recruitment process, Mr. Speaker. When Kenyans front themselves to be in the front line of the defense of our country, it's only fair that we afford that opportunity on an equitable measure. So, Honorable Emase and Honorable Kosing, I undertake to make sure that, again, we also need a lot of sensitization for Kenyans to know that you do not have to pay to be recruited into the KDF. I will look again at the SOPs around the recruitment, but it is also high time that we have a whistleblowing around these activities with a rapid response to issues of corruption and malpractices around the recruitment process. So, Mr. Speaker, it is my undertaking that it is an area of priority that I will look at, and should there be cases of malpractice from within, because it is from without the KDF, and in certain instances within the KDF, then appropriate action would be taken.
Point of order, Speaker. Point of order.
Yes, Person.
Honorable Speaker.